anderen Seite?
Wir klicken. Hello, hello. Wow, we're a bunch of people. Thank you all for being here today. I'm from the Social Developers Club. I'll tell you more about this later. And this is Guus.
Hey, my name is Guus. I'm from the Google Developer Group Go and Cloud. We're also having Matze here, who's representing the Google Development Group Android. Sadly, Marco isn't here, which would present the general Google Developer Cloud. And over there is Sasha, who's co-leading the Go and Cloud meetup with me. We are kind of a co-host today because having the connection to Google and hello to our host Niklas Voss. And yeah, we are super surprised about the high amount of attendances. Happy to have you here and enjoy the evening.
Yeah, a couple more announcements to come from my side, but I'm also very happy to have you here. And like I said, I'm Julia from the Social Developers Club. We are an international network for techies or everyone interested in technology. These are our values. Yeah, we like this diversity, so we don't want to exclude anyone. This also means not bashing any programming languages. I know this is hard, but please try. And yeah, this is the Pac-Man circle I want to tell you a little bit about. I know, who loves this? So who knows Pac-Man here? Everyone almost. Nice. Okay, that's cool. So you know how the mouth of the circle is not closed? And this is what I want to see also today from you. If you talk and stand around in circles, please always leave like a little open space so anyone can join anytime. That would be awesome. And we have a live stream today, but we also will walk around later probably and take some pictures and videos. If you don't want to be on the pictures, that's no problem. Please let me know and get a little sticker from me. So everyone who's taking pictures knows that you don't want to be on them. And even if they take pictures, we will not share them later if we see any sticker. Oh, and some ads to come. We have the upcoming events after today. Our next meetup will be at Protofy, and it's going to be about Flutter. Yay, nice! Yeah, I see Malte over there who's going to be a speaker, and Florentine over there. You will hear some things from her later today. And also, we are planning a kind of bigger event. It's the Social Developers Conference in May. Yeah, please take pictures and screen the codes. There are tickets already available, but only you know about this right now. It's not published anywhere yet, so if you want to join, be fast. There's only 100 tickets available. And that's about it from the ads. And of course, we like you to spread the event, spread the word about this event, because the topics today are super important to us. So feel free to share everything wherever you like, and also feel free to tag us and tag GDG Hamburg. That'd be great, so we also see what you liked. And that's it. Now I want to welcome on stage Zamina for our first talk today.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation and the introduction. I was not sure that so many people were coming, so actually it's really great to see you all and to have you here. I'm a little bit nervous because it's my first talk this year and presentation, and you all know that on stage is a little bit different than when you are listening. So, but let's start. So, today I want to give you an introduction into what it means when we create products with value for everyone. That's a big word, value for everyone, and I would like to start directly with products and their value. This is Moja. I know we have some colleagues here, yeah? Exactly, so Moja, I think you know it. Moja is a ride pooling service. You share your ride with someone going in the same direction. And who actually used Moja already? Please give me a hand sign. Okay. Have you ever thought about what do you actually need to use Moya? An app, yeah. Smartphone, right. Credit card. More? Driver.
Internet access.
Internet access, yeah. So, when you want to use Moya as a service, you need a smartphone, you need a digital payment function, you need to be able to walk because you have to go to your different starting points. You need to be able to see because your car is coming and give a sign. You need to be able to walk to go into that, and you need to be able to hear because the driver is going to say, okay, that's your stopping point, please go out. So when you think about it, for who was Moya actually created originally? Non-drivers, yeah. So it was originally created for people like us, right? It's great for us. It's digital, it's optimized. I can just pick my smartphone, book it, and then I use it. So it is really optimized for digital natives and tech people. Now you can ask the other way around, who actually needs a mobility solution?
Elderly people.
Sorry?
Maybe elderly people?
Elderly only?
No, but it's also everyone.
Everyone.
With an example.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So a mobility solution of the future is needed by everyone. So Moya's potential is actually for everyone. Another example. Imagine you sit in a bar and you want to show a funny video to your friend. This bar is so noisy and loud and crowded, your friend cannot actually listen to the voices of that video. So you have then two options. Either you say, okay, we don't watch this video, it's too loud, or you switch on the subtitles. The subtitles because it's too loud, but your friend can now read all the content of that video and laugh about that joke. For who was actually subtitles created for? Which group?
Learners.
Learners?
Yeah. Those who want to learn new languages.
Learn new languages?
People with hearing problems.
Deaf people. So it was originally created for deaf people, but this function, the feature subtitle, is used by almost everyone because we all experience these situations where we cannot hear, we want to be quiet, we cannot listen to it because we don't speak the native language. So subtitles has a much more value for more people than only deaf people. Then last example, this soap dispenser. You can see in the first picture a white person trying to get some soap and it's working. And then in the second picture, a person of color is trying to get some soap and it's not working. The person of color needs to put a white paper to get some soap. This is the worst case scenario which can happen if you forget about your users and the diversity of your users. You are excluding customers and, worst case, you are actually repeating human discrimination because it was only tested for people with white skin color. I'm Zamina, by the way, and today I tell you how we avoid that and how we create products with value for everyone. But first of all, we have to understand why does this still happen? I mean, look around, yeah? We are at Google, it's an event by Social Developers Club. We are all well-educated people and we have good intentions, right? So, but, no? Okay. But it still does happen. There are tons of these examples of software, of products, of services where people are excluded or discrimination is repeated again. And the problem is also in our product management system, how we create products. So first of all, we like to create for stereotypes. it all starts with these persona. And we forget about it, that persona is something artificial. It should help us, but in reality it limits us. And we create only services for a specific amount of people. So we optimize it for maybe for the digital native, but it was not intended, but we exclude other people and make it hard for them to use services. So that's one reason why this still happens. Second reason is that we have a misconception about disability. When I say disabled person, you think automatically about a person sitting in a wheelchair. But in reality, it's not only about a permanent health condition. It's actually something we experience, every one of us experience that. In this loud bar, we are not able to listen to anything. When we are driving a car, we are limited in our seeing abilities. So there are lots of these situations and experiences that we have limited access to our abilities, which actually affects the user experience. So disabled is not a permanent health condition, it is actually a situation. And then last but not least, if you think about that soap dispenser example, the team behind it, they didn't have bad intention. They had good intentions. Maybe they had time pressure. They wanted to push the soap dispenser to the market. And they forgot about it, that there are different skin colors they need to test. So a very homogeneous team results in maybe human discrimination and soap dispensers which are not working for everyone. And that's our own bias, and we have to admit that we have conscious but also unconscious bias. So what is the solution? The solution actually comes from Google. Yeah? It's a book, Building Products with Value for Everyone. And in this book, there is presented that method, product inclusion, because Google's mission is to create value for all people around the world and to include everyone. And in product inclusion, you want to design products and services for as many people as possible. It does not mean you're making now one thing and it should have all these solutions for everyone at the same time. You should more think about features and options. Think about the subtitle example again. You can switch it on or off. Or also Moya, you can now book a service where I can say, okay, I'm a person in a wheelchair, another option. So you include people with different options and have access to different customer groups, looking from the business perspective side or looking from the human side, I am having access to that service. So product inclusion sounds great and nice, and now we are creating inclusive products, but why should we actually care? There are different reasons why we should care to create inclusive products. The first reason is that we are actually responsible. We maybe forget about it, but because it's our day-to-day job, we are sitting there 5 days a week, but we are creating the digital future. That's really great, but it's also our responsibility not even to avoid human discrimination, but also to include everyone and all the differences we have in our customer groups and our potential. So the first reason why you should care is that we create a digital future, and this is our responsibility. The second reason is economic interest. So why should we actually exclude people? They could book something at your product and your service. They are creating revenue. They are customer growth, and they will give you the survival on the market. So economic interest is the second reason why you should care about inclusive products. And then, last but not least, product inclusion can create very much value and benefits for the majority. If you think about that subtitle example again, it was created for a minority, but it's used today in so many different situations because all of us are experienced that limited access to their abilities. So you cannot even actually anticipate how much benefit such options could create. So, and now what can we do really differently? When we create products, we often create products in that design thinking mindset, right? It's not a process like here, it's more a mindset where you iterate, jump back and forth, you understand the context, you define a problem, ideate solution, prototype and test it. And so in that mindset of design thinking, there are 3 points where you can change your mindset to be more inclusive. The first point is when you understand the context. You need to understand also the user diversity and who you want to approach. So stop thinking about these personas, understand how different are all these users and who should be my customer. Am I excluding them on purpose or am I excluding them because I forgot about them? So think about their user diversity and make it different for them. Here are maybe some examples which are quite obvious. For example, in the fashion industry. If you have a fashion shop, and why do you show only white people even though your customers are having different skin colors? Reflect that in the pictures so people can relate to the pictures and also the fashion. Another obvious example is language, right? So you have a shop or something or any website and your customers are maybe only Spanish speaking. Why don't you offer that option? That makes it easier for them to use your website and your service. Another example is the gaming industry. In the gaming industry, it's actually fact that the potential of female players are 50%. But it's not reflected in gaming figures like in fantasy games. Often you have only 1 woman as option and 10 men, so it's not 50-50. And then when you look at the female players, it's often, unfortunately, hypersexualized women with big boobs. And then as a woman you think, okay, I go for a man, so I play a man. So. Then, second point, which you can make different when you create inclusive solutions, you build with context in mind. So understand, when is your product going to be used? Is it on the way to work? So is it loud during that situation? Is it because while I'm driving? You need to understand when is your app, your service, your product, in which situations are you? Which situations is your user and which limitations could occur and how can you make it easy for them? So it's not only on sitting on the couch or on the desk. So that's one reason, one point you can make different. Examples are everything you actually carry with you is a good example. Entertainment, communication, news, you want to read or listen to it, you want different access to that kind of information. So these are good examples where you can understand, okay, you will consume that content in different contexts and situations and you have to make it easy for your users to use your service. And then last, and if you did not make it until now in your design thinking process to include context, include user diversity, then lastly, test with different users. Because it's the last stopping point if you want to avoid discrimination. So think about that soap dispenser again. If that people or the team would have been tested that, they would have seen it and it wouldn't have been such a disaster, to be honest. And this is very important in areas like health tech and also beauty tech, because we need to reflect different body types and also different skin colors, because otherwise it doesn't work it does not work for everyone. Okay, so that's the product inclusion journey. So to summarize it, if you want to understand, okay, can we include more customers in our service, you need to identify, first of all, gaps. Do you have any gaps? Do you exclude any specific customers? Do you see any similarities in these customers? And why? Is it on purpose, or can you make it easier for them? Then second, of course, improve it. If you decide, okay, that was not on purpose, we want to include that customer groups, improve it for them. And then lastly, you can think about new customers. Why are specific groups are going to your competitors? Can you make it easier? Can you make it better? So include these new customers. But that's my last message here. Every single step counts if you want to include more people in your product or your service. And every small step counts here. And if you want to remember only one thing in inclusion and diversity, you actually just need to do something. And that's good. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the insights. Do you have questions? I will throw you the microphone because the live stream can hear it. Already, any questions from the Moya team?
No.
Okay. So I have a question actually.
Yeah.
How did you came up with this topic? Why is it important to you personally?
Yeah, I think where to start actually. So of course I'm affected. Yeah, that's one reason. I'm affected as a female person. I'm affected as a person with migration background. I'm affected as a person, first one who studied. So there are many reasons why it's important to me to fight for equality. But that's one mission inside me. And I'm working in the product development side. So I thought, why is it still like that we create discrimination, especially in AI? You can feel that right now, this trend that in AI you actually have this lack of data diversity, and then you suddenly exclude these people. And I know that working in that area, that people are not like that. We all want something good, but it happens because the team is not diverse, the data is not representative. And I think making some awareness here and telling people what you can do differently, because it's so small steps, will create so much benefit for all these different people we are. And yeah,
that's very true. I have another, but please stop me if you have a question. For me as a developer, do you have a tip how to, like, if the manager or whatever says no, we don't have time for this? Do you have like a sentence I can tell them? I know it's a really hard question, but you probably have been confronted with this, that people don't take it so serious.
So yeah, that's a major issue, that people don't take it serious. Then you have to actually tell, okay, then you exclude this amount of people. Maybe you can quantify that, how many people they are. And maybe it's relevant for that company, maybe not. It's different from use case to use case, I would say. But if you exclude them from the beginning, you have to make the changes maybe later because you want to grow. But I think that's the main part, that you actually exclude potential customers.
Yeah. And it might also get really expensive if you do it later on, right? If you don't do
then
it right
it gets
from the
more
beginning.
expensive,
There was a question. Do we have another mic for the back? Or can you just say it loud?
Maybe I can speak from here. So as you said, you want to equalize things. I've heard a lot. In absolute terms, is it possible to have equal opportunity?
In absolute terms, if it's possible to have equal opportunities, is the question, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just repeating for live stream. And So I think there's this difference between equality and equity. I don't know if you're aware of it. Equality means we all have the same access to the things, but actually that's not the solution, right? People have different abilities and needs, and actually we need to push and give people more chances and accesses than other people because it's normal for them. There's this nice picture where equality means, okay, we all have one step now and can look over the wall. That's equality, having same ground. But equity means, okay, the one person with that limitation needs a higher step to see, because maybe, yeah. And that's, I think, a kind of a good picture. And I think it's worth, if you ask me if it's valuable to fight for equal rights, then I would say yes, every time, everywhere, all over the world. So, yeah. But I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah. Not 100%.
All right. Will you stay a little longer for questions?
Sure, yeah.
All right. Okay, but there's one last one.
Yeah, I have also a question. First of all, thank you for your talk. You said that it generates economic value to be inclusive in development, and I thought about, well, isn't capitalism one of the main reasons to be not inclusive, to build something for maybe 90% of the users that are not disabled, at least not in all situations? That's my question.
So if capitalism, say it again, is the reason why?
Yeah, like if I wanted to build a product,
Yeah.
And say, okay, I wanted to make the most economic value out of it,
Yeah.
then I wouldn't invest a lot of money to target like 10% of my users, for example.
Not sure.
For example, if you have a taxi and if you want to have also wheelchairs, you need a lot of equipment to have to allow the wheelchairs to get in. This is the question.
Yeah.
So will it make sense to invest like 10 millions?
Yeah, the thing is, I think in Zamina's talk, it was really clear that you think that it's only for one tiny group, like the subtitles, but then it turns out it's actually helpful for everyone. So actually, economically view, it's still probably a good reason to include everyone because it could have a larger impact.
So yeah, maybe another answer would be we should stop thinking in minorities and label them in minorities. That's the second point, is that we have a misconception about disability and minorities, because we all experience that limitation at some point in our life or in some context or in some situation. So, and that's, yeah, the subtitle example is one. You thought maybe, I don't know when subtitles was developed, but maybe 30 years ago, someone said, yeah, we have to do that because it's for deaf people, they cannot listen. And then actually everyone now uses that, and you cannot anticipate the benefits of it often. Actually, you can, because we have user experience methods, and I think you can understand in which situations you are today. But that's a feature which was developed, and I'm sure that someone said, that's for a minority, but we have to do it. But in reality, it creates much more value.
Okay, very last one. We have to make a little break.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that we should start treating accessibility as an NFR? So similar to how we're treating security and performance while we're building products, we should also consider accessibility.
Actually, I think there was a law from the European Union that until 2025 we all need to implement accessibility in our website and apps. So I think the law is already pushing forward that topic.
Little side note, our last meetup was exactly on that topic, so if you want to watch that again, it's on YouTube. All right, thank you so much. Please, all other questions with a drink maybe, and then I would say we see each other back in 10 minutes, so 19:20 would be great. Thank you. All right. Welcome back. I hope you had a great break and some good conversations. We're gonna get going with Christoph and his talk, Intersectionality Beyond the Buzzword. So as you know, afterwards you have time for some questions. And thank you so much for being here today.
Okay, kein Problem. I would take the mic, or should I talk without? So, mic is better. People on the back say mic's better. Great, I'm using the mic. Wonderful. All right. Thank you for that input. Hey, my name is Christoph, and for the past 20 years, I worked in the areas of design, tech, and activism. Sometimes all of the things at the same time. And over the past years, I also have been very active in corporate diversity, and I've seen diversity and inclusion growing to diversity, equity, inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I've seen also intersectionality being added to this topic. Something that I find very good and very important, but I still feel that the topic is sometimes not as well understood. So this is what I want to do today. I want to talk to you about intersectionality, about the history, and how we might apply it to the workplace. So, and I'm painfully aware that I'm a man talking on the stage close to International Women's Day. I know. But so please let me explain how I try to tackle this topic. Because whenever I am part of a feminist discourse, when I'm close to the topic of women, I try to figure out if whatever is being discussed here is in any way relevant for my mother and my sister. And if you're talking about intersectionality, it should be. But I'm afraid that I've oftentimes seen that it's not. And this is why I would like to talk to you. And I want to start with a short anecdote. Promise, just short. So last year, I was asked to give an impulse talk to a tech consultancy around diversity. So they already had a very good track record in gender diversity. I think there were around 50-50 in many places, so they were quite good. So they asked me to get in there and give a few words. And first of all, I said, well, what you're doing here is very appreciated. It's to be applauded. Because as I said, they already had amazing numbers. But I also told them, when I looked around, the picture that I saw looked a little bit like this. It was a good picture. A great picture, even. But the one thing that I couldn't find in the picture was me. I'm not in that picture. But my sister is not in that picture as well. And this is how I've seen the topic of diversity often be handled in Germany. And so, let's talk about intersectionality with one example. Because oftentimes I feel that when we discuss gender diversity, we have this binary about the men who have the pie and the women who want their rightful piece of the pie. And oftentimes this is exemplified with the glass ceiling as a metaphor, but we can more concretely pin it to the gender pay gap. That's a thing that has numbers, and I think it's very reliable. And the gender pay gap, oftentimes when we talk about that in isolation, is 78 cents to the $1 male dollar. But from where I stand, though, it might look a little bit different. can look a little bit like this. And this is where I would be in the US, 71 cents to the white man's dollar. But as I said, I'm not the main person here. It's more about where would my sister be? Where would other people and women of color be? So I'm using the numbers from the US because in Germany, we do not have reliable data on this because we don't really track that. Here there is very limited resource on this thing that is called the racial pay gap. But herein lies the first lesson in intersectionality, that women are not a monolith. So there is always this struggle between coexistent oppressions to race and gender. And this issue has always existed in the fight for women's liberation. So this is why, and this is where the historical part starts, I want to go to the beginning, the women's suffragette movement, the first wave of feminism, and the people who brought us the day that we will celebrate tomorrow. So from the 19th century on, suffragettes were fighting for women's right to vote. They did that in UK, and this is a group of women from the US. So, first of all, let's remember that when the bosses try to hand you a rose, that this was really a fight that was going on, and a fight that was won. But while, and it hurts me to say that, while black women have been on the forefront of the struggle since the beginning, they have always a little bit been sidelined here. And when I brought up this topic to a person who had high accolades in female leadership here in Germany, she said to me, well, we have to look after the majority of the minority first. It would be too complicated to take other vectors into account. Well, this is Sojourner Truth, a former slave abolitionist and women's rights activist who had the following to say in the Women's Conference, 1851. That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. Ain't I a woman? And while the suffragettes in the US achieved a victory in 1920, it took until the Civil Rights Act from 1965 for black women to truly be able to vote in the US. All right, yeah, fast forwarding to the 70s, this is not a family photo of mine. These are members of the Combahee River Collective, a group of black lesbian activists. And in their statement from 1977, and whoever is interested in intersectionality, I would really love for you to read that statement because it's absolutely great. They write, "We also often find it difficult to separate race from class from sex oppression, because in our lives they are most often experienced simultaneously. We know that there is such a thing as a racial sexual oppression which is neither solely racial nor solely sexual." And by the end of the 1980s, when Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, a legal scholar, observed a case where 5 black women went to court for discrimination, and the court decided that there was no case because the guidelines they had were either against racial discrimination or discrimination on the basis of sex. So the legal body did not see black women as a thing. And this is what Kimberly Crenshaw formulated as such. Intersectionality is the view that women experience oppression in varying configuration and in varying degrees of intensity. Cultural patterns of oppression are not only interrelated, but are bound together and influenced by the intersection of society. It might be a little bit wordy, but it is the core of what the Combahee River Collective already knew. And this is the important bit of all of this. And this is why I choose to highlight the role of black women in the history of intersectionality, because it started with them. Nowadays, I feel like we're now in the 2020s, that intersectionality often looks like this. The definition has changed slightly. So we have intersectionality is an analytical framework for understanding how aspects of a person's social and political identities combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. So it's a little bit more general. So women are not the focus anymore in this definition. And it's not only about oppression, it's about all facets of identity. And here are some of the most important ones. We have ability, race, sexuality, and the others. And I think, although there is something that has been lost in that definition, there's also something that is important that has been added, the question of privilege. But also in the spirit of talking about social aspects, right? So I'm standing in front of you. I could have introduced myself as an able-bodied, heterosexual, cis man identifying as black. And it's common to do that in certain groups and circles. So in a way, this is splintering my identity into different categories. I like to call that a divergent mode of identity, which in a way deconstructs intersectionality. For instance, if we are strictly talking about my oppression, we would be talking about my race. We're talking about that I am black. If we are strictly talking about my privileges, well, we would be talking about all the other parts of my identity. And there can be a lot. So I think that reflecting on all of these attributes is very important to realize who we are in society and where we stand in society, who we are as people. And the breakdown, as you can see, can go really, really deep. But what I've observed is that the convergent analysis, also putting these attributes together to form a whole, well, that rarely happens. We spread ourselves out, we talk about the different slices of our identity, but then we miss putting them back together to be intersectional. So this leads to certain conundrums. If we would just look at me as a man, a cis man, patriarchy should completely work for me. I'm a man. Patriarchy is this concept built for me and the likes of me. But as a black person, I've been discriminated against by white men and women alike. There's absolutely no difference in my personal experience. And this is where intersectionality helps us to understand why these varying configuration of oppression influence our experience, as Kimberly Crenshaw outlined. So, now we have history, we have theory. Now is the question, how does that reflect to the workplace? Because you all want to know, this guy's talking about old stuff, about theory things, social theory, but my workplace, what can we do here? So, depending on where you work, you might have employee resource groups or affinity groups. Groups that are created by company diversity efforts that should give employees with different backgrounds, with marginalized backgrounds, a way that they can congregate, that they can support each other on their career journey, and so on. And this is a model that uses these divergent identities, right? It's splintering up these identities. And while I think it's super important to have these groups, the question then would be, where would the black lesbian join? Does she have to decide if she wants to be in the women's group? Does she have to decide if she wants to be in the LGBTQ group? Does she have to decide if she wants to be in the BIPOC group? Because, let's be honest, she can't be in all of them, because in the end, these groups are often created by passionate individuals in their own time. And it's allowed to do that as long as you also do your work, right? You can go to the meeting, but have you worked on these 2 tickets? And oftentimes, you will prioritize the work that you need to do because you have your supervisor saying, hey, we need to have that done tomorrow. Is this meeting really that necessary, right? So even if that hypothetical black lesbian wanted to be active, it would be hard to do it in one group, not imagining doing it in all 3. So this is what would happen if we stuck to the division of identities. And I don't think that we as marginalized people will benefit from trying to figure out in which box we need to put ourselves. As Audre Lorde said, there is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives. So what can we do here? All right. Maybe somebody has watched this movie. It's Oscar nominated from 2 years ago, Judas and the Black Messiah. It centers around a historical figure called Fred Hampton from the 60s. He was part of a Black Power group. He was a Black Power activist, organized in a group called Black Panther Party. The Panthers fought against police violence, racism, and the oppressive systems that created these forces. What made Fred Hampton a standout figure in this movement was that he managed to do one important thing. He got his group, the Panthers, in Chicago, together with groups of Latinos, together with groups of white working class people. Groups that previously would not sit on one table. He, together with them, identified common goals in their struggles. Because there were a lot of things that they had in common, even though their identities were so different. This led to the creation of the Rainbow Coalition, reaching across the aisles of identity towards working to a common goal. And this was their first motto. We want freedom. We want the power for all people to determine their own destiny. So here's my suggestion. I suggest that if you can identify with that message of empowerment, to figure out a common goal of your affinity group, to create a rainbow coalition of your own, where people are different but equal. So that the black lesbian of my story doesn't have to choose, that she can be a part of this, and can have her struggles heard without having to divide in different identity groups. I'm not saying abolish those, I'm just saying maybe there is a coalition to be formed. Because I think this would make the diversity journey your companies are on, and I just assume that whatever company you're in, there is some sort of diversity journey, more intersectional. And the journey could look a little bit like this. Because this is also something that I want to address, that a lot of these journeys start with tokenism, right? Where a representative of a minority group is put on the spot saying like, hey, you are the one now. You are the person that needs to represent without any real power, just being window dressing. I've been there. Then representation, which is the next step, saying like, oh yeah, we have a woman in our leadership team. The question is that one person, which now has to carry all the burden, able to do something for her marginalized identity alone? Then we got diversity. So a lot of people with various backgrounds, but if you only look at diversity, there will always be an implicit power imbalance that you're not addressing. So everybody should be equal, but we're not living in an equal society, so there will be something in there. And people have seen that very early on, because diversity should never stand without inclusion. Right? And if we have inclusion, that means that members of the marginalized group are invited to join the in-group. There are now ways to lean in. There are now ways for everybody from a marginalized group to be part of the bigger, to be part of the existing professional standards. What I would love to see is the intersection, that gold pot at the end of the rainbow here, where these marginalized groups are able to shape the environment themselves, where they can do that without being judged by the standards of the privilege. And that is, it's a challenging journey, but nothing comes easy, and I think we still need to try to do it. So if you want to have a company that's truly intersectional, I would suggest that's the trajectory to go. And one last thing before I go is something that I want to acknowledge. I am a person with a single vector of oppression, right? I'm in a similar situation as a white gay man, in a similar situation as a white straight woman. We have this one thing that keeps us away from completely assimilating into the status quo. And it can be extremely annoying. It's like the carrot is dangling in front of our face. There's this one thing that we need to overcome to be truly at the table, get a piece of our pie. And I can empathize with this. I'm not finger pointing here, because I understand. So my main activism is around anti-racism, because this is the thing that affects me the most. This is where I have my experiences. This is where this hits me the most. But I want to say, while we take up our own challenges, while we find ways into leadership, while we find our ways into places of power, and I know that some of you do, that while we create coalitions, while we make accomplices out of allies, that we never forget to lift as we climb. As I will never forget my sister and my mother and all of this. Thank you. That's all I wanted to share.
All right. Thank you so much. That was so insightful. Are there already questions? All right. Yeah. Thank you. And loud for the...
I'll try. So as a, upper middle class, this cis white guy, I, couldn't be less oppressed if I tried. And I always wonder, do I just, what can I do? Do I just shut up and, wait to lift people up? And I don't really know what that looks like in my day-to-day life. How do I lift people up? Do you have any advice for that?
I mean, there's a lot to do. I mean, that's a little bit much for just answering the question. We can discuss this in depth later, but I think the first step is realizing what you're already realizing. That's step one, right? And I understand it's really hard to figure out where to go from there. And if you realize, as you have realized you have privilege, try to figure out how you can lend that. Have an open eye, look around, see where people who do not have these privileges struggle, and figure out if there is a way you can help. If there is a way that the struggles that they experience actually come from the way they are oppressed. A very easy example is meetings. That's one of the biggest ones, women in meetings getting talked over by the alpha males in the room who will talk really fast, really loud, and the woman is not getting any word in. And if you see that, to kind of jump into the phrase and hey fellas, and every eye's on you, and it's I think Julie over there wants to say something. I mean, that's one simple example of landing privilege in there. There are more ways, there are deeper ways to be an accomplice.
Thanks.
More questions? Yes.
So I was trying to speak without a mic. As you once mentioned with the pie, and it's actually an unavoidable fact that there is limited resource. So it's often told that we have this and this problems, we cannot put them all together simultaneously. So what would you say for that kind of case if they're saying, then would you prioritize something out of this?
Well, if I can repeat it, I don't know. So the question was, so there is just one pie. Okay, what was the next one?
How would you share it with all these people? Because like you said, it's not just one single factor, it's sexual identity and race and everything. So if we say that we would need actually two pies to fill all them up and we just have one pie right now, then what would you suggest to do?
I would say it's about the access to that pie. I mean, another answer would be let's figure out how we can live without that pie in a world that is post-pie based. But since we're living in a pie world and we have this single pie, figure out how other people can access to that. And there are a lot of numbers that you can look at. It's like who is getting promoted in your company, how fast, to which level, who is getting the money, is there a gender pay gap in your company, are there racial pay gaps, are there other gaps, right? I think the first thing, as I'm also a designer, is to figure out, okay, what is the core problem? Do an analysis in here to figure out where are the inequalities, who is blocked from the pie. And if you slowly remove all of these barriers, I believe that there will be a more just distribution.
Yep, nice. International Pie Day coming up next week. Next week today, yeah. Right? More questions? I saw the hand.
Okay, thank you for your talk. So let's say maybe I'm a CEO of a company and I recruit some people and I have one woman and one man, and my starting salary is 50,000 euros or something like that. And then the man asks for more money because he's actively negotiating, and I really want this guy because he has all the skills necessary, and he's worth to me a little bit more than 50,000. So I give him like a 10% raise, and the woman never asks for the raise. What do I do about it? Should I offer like women a higher starting salary just because they are less likely to negotiate, or what do you do about it?
Well, in your example, you already said you want to hire the man.
No, I want to hire both.
Ah, you want to hire both.
Oh, sorry if that didn't come through.
Well, if you want to hire both, and if you really want to be fair, then I would suggest, and like, hey, be open and honest about that. I think the transparency around pay needs to be bigger. I think this is one of the biggest factors of discrimination, that we in Germany, we are really coy about pay. We do not let anybody else know what we are getting paid. The companies do not want you to share this information because they are aware. And if you truly want to do something, that this is the way to start, to offer fair pay in the beginning. And if there is a man aggressively negotiating, it's in your power to figure out if this is something that impresses you, or if you feel that the other person that is equally qualified should earn the same. If you say like, well, the man makes a good case for his 60K instead of the 50K, and those two people should be equal, what's the reason the woman shouldn't get a 60 as well?
I mean, I don't want to throw away free money if the woman starts anyway. Because I'm also like economically thinking.
I'm sorry.
No, not throwing away, but like I still want to.
Post-pie-based economy.
It's the same position you are offering.
Yes, but I mean, realistically, companies think like that. It's not my personal opinion. I mean.
So basically, what you're saying is you want to hire the woman because she underbids the guy.
No, I let's say both meet my quality threshold, and I want to hire both because they both meet the threshold. But just one asks for less money, and the other person wants more money. But they are still both worth it to me.
Then the answer is they have both same positions and same salary.
Yeah, I mean, that is at the center. Now I think it's really important to talk about this, because this is at the center of this, because women are not earning less because we think that's what they deserve. I mean, some people believe that, but in the end, it is because this is what company can do. Like, we need a workforce, and let's figure out how we economically make that work for us. We need to fill 5 positions. We have a full pot of money. How can we distribute this in a way that benefits us, the company, financially more? And I would suggest to, well, take a leap here. Say, whatever we try to accomplish by paying women less, and I hate to make a slice-based analysis of this, but it is proven that diversity in the workplace will create better products. And in the end, this is, if you take a bet on the future, that whatever you are creating will not be a soap dispenser that you then have to replace with a lot of money because you didn't take diversity into account. This is a way you can kind of figure this out, but it is a risk-based decision. It's not the money that you have in the pocket that you put out right now. But I would say in the long run, it really pays to have a fully diverse workforce.
Yeah, thank you. I agree.
So, as a startup, what can I do to find diverse employees? So, what steps can I take when I'm already looking?
Well, as a startup, I appreciate that you have limited resources, right? So there are things that big companies like Google can do to really...
Yeah,
well, it's still working. To really get diversity from the market. So I've seen that. But have you ever tried to actively go after marginalized people. Let's say marginalized people more broadly. Because if you stay with a generic, we are looking for a developer, MD, W, and everything that you are sending out below that reads as it is written for a man. Like we need a go-getter who is stress averse, who is like 110%, will really get it, and
That's a bit over the top.
and you frame that with the pictures of, I don't know, white guys playing ping pong. You will not reach the people that you want to reach. So I think you need to take a concerted effort. And there are a lot of groups, women job groups, LGBTQ job groups, black people job groups that focus on this. So you can get in contact with these people and say like, hey, we specifically want to have a more diverse workforce. Can you help us with that? That is a possibility.
Do I Google for them? Or how? It's a real question. So
Yeah.
Really, do I Google for them and then contact them, or is there some other way?
Well, you can Google them. There for LGBTQ, for instance, there's Ulala who makes the Sticks and Stones job fair. For women, I think there are a lot of, I'm not sure about names, but I think there are a lot of women's groups who say like, hey, we're interested in that. For black people, there is Black in Tech. They're Berlin-based. So that's just on top of my head. I think if you Google, you will find many more.
Thank you.
And maybe on a personal note, as a developer and a woman, try to not put all the things you need in the job description, or not, like usually you put everything in the job description, right? But women tend to only apply for the jobs if they have like 90% of the skills in a job description, and men, I think 30 is the number. So if you really reduce it to what you need and everything else is optional, or just don't put it in because you just would like to have it but don't really need it for the job, that's like a big go for more people, women at least, yeah.
Yeah, and there are more tips like that you can actually Google about how to frame your language and so on and so forth, how to optimize for more people than the usual people that apply.
Yes. All right. I'm sorry we're out of time for the Q&A. We will have only a 5-minute break now, and then coming to because we wouldn't be Social Developers Club if we not look at some tech today. So this is why Florentine is here today, and will talk to us a little bit more about Flutter, which is the main topic of our next event, like I said in the beginning. And we're just gonna take a little sneak peek into the topic already today. But first of all, thanks, Christoph, for these great insights.
My pleasure.
Yes. All right. We are coming almost to the end. Our last, but definitely not the least talk today. We're going to look into the revolutionary UI toolkit, Flutter, thanks to Florentine, who's going to present this topic today.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to the speakers for sharing their knowledge, and I really, really enjoyed your talks, so thanks, Zamina and Christoph. My name is Florentine. I'm a software engineer at Protofy, where I develop apps and websites for an array of clients. And the past 2 years, I've been doing so using Flutter. And this is what I'm here to talk to you about. Flutter is a UI toolkit developed by Google, which is used by 42% of developers worldwide to develop cross-platform apps. First, I want to establish what a cross-platform app is. Some of you probably know, but still. Let's think back maybe 8 years ago. If you wanted to build an app, it still has some issues regarding search engine optimization, for example. But this is not exclusive to Flutter. It was also an issue with other cross-platform frameworks, and it was fixed by introducing server-side rendering, for example. So still, I wanted to mention, if search engine optimization is like your biggest priority, then maybe the Flutter web is not the perfect solution for you yet. But keep in mind, Flutter was developed with mobile first, the mobile first approach. So Android and iOS, Google phones, all of that are easily supported. So now, what's the hype? I just told you what's like the caveat, so now I'm going to tell you why I'm so excited about Flutter and why I'm here to get you excited. And I brought 2 quick examples because I don't want to keep you any longer. The first is widgets. Widgets are UI components that are pre-built that you can use to build your app. And let's have a look at one example, or maybe 2. Yes. This is Flutter's documentation, and here you can see the widget catalog. The widgets are ordered alphabetically and sorted by category. A very basic example would be a text widget, just to get the people who haven't seen this on board. Here you can see the code, highly customizable because you can not only pass a string that you want to display, but also style and set the font weight or the font itself, font size, color, etc. So say goodbye to CSS and all those things. Yes, finally. You can also choose an overflow or a text align to tell your widget where to align the text or what to do when the text is too long for your screen. This is a super simple example, and Flutter comes with countless other widgets. Let us have a look. For example, the material components is also included. Here you have access to elevated buttons that you can style and that already come with haptic feedback, for example. So by using this widget, you implement it in your app and it looks polished from the get-go. My favorite one that I always like to mention are the accessibility widgets, though, because obviously we're at the right talk for that. And the accessibility widget, for example, the semantics widget can be wrapped around any widget in your app, and it will help screen readers and people with disabilities to access your app and use it without barriers. Back to there we are. And the second thing I want to talk about, the second feature, so to say, is the dev tools. If you're a developer or if you're thinking about starting your development journey, these will come in really handy for you and make your life much easier. I think Flutter offers a great variety of dev tools, and to mention some, let's also look at the documentation because they do this really well. So this, for example, is an example of the widget explorer. You can look at your app and explore the layout of your widgets and see how they interact with each other. This makes it really easy to fix overflow issues or other layouting issues that you might encounter. Like if you ever worked with Flexbox, I'm sure you know the struggle. And yeah, this is a great tool to debug and figure out your layout. Talking about debugging, it also comes with a debugger that lets you set breakpoints in your code and really guides you through the whole debugging process. You can look at data in a much more formatted way, and you can get rid of your console log, or in this case, print statements. And yeah, it makes it much more efficient. These are just, sorry for that. These are just two examples why I'm excited about Flutter. And if you're interested in learning more about, let's say, custom lints or animations, you can do so at our meetup that we're hosting on the 23rd. It's called What's New Flutter, and we'll go into depth, and you can meet other Flutter developers or get connected with people who are also starting with Flutter. And yeah, that's about it. I would like to see you there. If any one of you wants to join, I'd be super happy to have you. Maybe just, this is the meetup link again. And for anyone who's interested in learning Flutter, these are the resources that I recommend. Thanks.
Yeah. Do you have already questions that we can not maybe clear today, but that we should definitely talk about in the meetup? That now it's your time, that we can still have prepared something. Yeah.
I truly know nothing about Flutter, so sorry if this is ignorant. But in the widget catalog, I couldn't help but notice one category was Cupertino, and the description was iOS widgets using Apple design language or whatever. And I was wondering how that fits into a cross-platform first approach.
Well, there's always people who really focus on one user group, obviously. And also you can, if you're really into it, you can use Cupertino for iOS and Material for Android, but usually the people who pay for the app, so in our case, our customers, because I work for an agency, they decide which way they want to go. And it's usually based on the larger user group that uses the app.
So it's just an option if I want to do like an iOS
first.
So
But we do use, for example, for pop-ups that feel very native in the sense, we do always use the respective library, Cupertino or
and that's
Material.
supported like out of the box?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Very, very good questions. Like Flutter, it's a very interesting topic, but I'm more interested about how the outcome of the Flutter, like is it generated at the end native language or
What it's compiled to?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's compiled to. I'm honestly not entirely sure. I'm looking at my colleague who's like the super brain. I know. I think it's compiled to native language, right?
Well, not the native language you're used to in iOS or Android development, but it's something even more native, like
native.
that directly runs on the CPU, but you don't want to write code in it, and so it's quite fast, and it compiles to its own framework, so to its own engine, so to speak, and it uses its own engine to show you the user interface. So everything you see, every widget that looks Material is not the original Material widget from Android. So you can even do Cupertino widgets in Android environments and other way around, but you would confuse your users.
Yes, thank you, Malte. He's also going to be at the talk, and he's also going to speak, so if you want to hear more of him, he'll be there.
All right. I know you want to know a lot more about Flutter, but this was only to tease you to come. Because I noticed that not a lot of people know Flutter, actually, and that's why we wanted to use this opportunity today. But, okay, last question over there.
I would love to hear about your experiences and challenges about when it comes to lower levels to hardware and using sensors modules of the device between iOS and Android. I remember it was challenging to use them, and itself on Android we have different SDK levels. It's challenging on Android itself, and when it comes to both, then how do you handle it?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think we have multiple approaches to that, but what I can tell you right now, so not to keep everyone much longer, we've also, at the company I work at, we've also built an app that directly speaks with or controls a device via Bluetooth, for example, and we've built that app using Flutter. It had some, we'd had some challenges, but we've managed to do so, and I think that really shows Flutter's abilities. And speaking about more common topics like push notifications, etc., yes, we definitely see a challenge, but I also hear of Android developers having the same challenge, to be honest, because the SDK changes and they throw overboard some things they've decided on. So I can't give you a number as to how much more difficult it is, but I don't think it's very relevant, to be honest, because you do save so much time when building the rest of the app.
I just wanted to recommend this topic for the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Good one. All right. All of our speakers are going to stay a little longer for the networking part, so if you have more detailed questions, please feel free to approach them and get into conversations. And yeah, I just want to say again, thank you to all of you for joining us for a little pre-International Women's Day event. I hope you have a great Women's Day tomorrow. Please celebrate it with all the heart, and not only tomorrow, but every day, actually. And yeah, thank you for joining today.